Now, let me return to my sketch, having stressed this vital point about the dependence, the biomedicine's strong dependence upon the physical sciences and engineering. Let me return to my sketch of our research in science and engineering and consider first information technology. We are at the leading edge of several critical subfields at Rice, building upon past successes in fields like digital signal processing. This is a technology that underlies, it's based on the thing called wavelets, and it underlies more than half of Texas Instruments' product line, more than half, and contributes to a broad array of applications in parallel computing, which is the use of massively parallel computers to handle big problems. And this is the center, the nation's center for research on parallel computing. From this base, we've mounted a cohesive effort for distinction in high-performance computation, with applications in environmental modeling, nuclear stockpile stewardship, seismic processing for oil exploration, tomography for medical diagnosis, as well as the design of airplanes and robots. And when we're talking about high-performance computing, we're talking about 30 and then later 100 teraflop computers. What's that mean? Well, the most powerful computer in the world today is a little less than 2 teraflops. And we hope to be working with Compaq and Los Alamos Labs on a 30 teraflop computer on the way to a 100 one. If you've got a computer like that, with that kind of capacity, you can at last think of trying to understand climate patterns and global warming, as well as you may simulate explosions, nuclear explosions, without having to pollute the air or the ground. Because if you don't know what's, well, the stockpile stewardship is a whole separate matter. Moreover, we are acutely conscious of unfilled needs for software engineering in industry. How will we respond? We're not going to respond by graduating a lot more software engineers. We're going to stay pretty much the same size. We have other ways of helping society deal with this problem. Our contribution will be to improve software productivity, coming from innovative work in what's called telescoping of computer languages, that is, facilitating end-user development technologies, making it easy for end users to do their own innovations to improve software productivity. We're also working on the next generation of wireless networking protocols that are so vital to the new information age. The second element of our info-bio-nano research strategy lies, of course, as I said, in biomedicine. The coming decade promises ever more stunning advances in biomedical technology. The important nascent areas include tissue engineering. For those who can afford it, in 15 years, there'll be no scars like I have on my face and on my back, okay? There won't be any scars because we'll be able to take your own tissue and put it there. Now, what about the people who can't afford it? Well, these are one of the problems I was talking about. You know, the flip side of all this progress. But if you can afford it, you won't be walking around with scars. The joining of insights of the bioscientists with very advanced tools of information and computational science will open up still undiscovered frontiers about which I cannot even imagine. It's very important, though, to understand, as I'll strengthen a point I made earlier, biology and biomedicine are rapidly becoming information sciences. And this is why we're coming ever closer and closer to Baylor College of Medicine, and MD Anderson Cancer Center, and the University of Texas Health Science Center, because they understand this. And now we understand, too. The human genome has been decoded far faster than anyone ever anticipated, but it was through this extraordinary combination of wet laboratory chemistry with extremely clever advanced computational technology. Mathematical and statistical and computer methods have put us on the brink of yet another revolution in biomedical research. Research that will move from the classic methods based on trial and error at the bench to research anchored in information about networks of molecular interactions that control both normal life and diseased life. And a new field of science integrates all these areas, and it is called bioinformatics. owing to our capacities in information and computational technology, and owing to the presence of the Texas Medical Center just across the street, Rice expects to be the unifying institution in advancing bioinformatics in this Gulf Coast area. The third defining field of the next century, nanoscience, is also closely linked both to the information revolution and the new biomedicine. You see how we try to have it all hang together. It's not an accident, by the way. We've been thinking about this. Faculty members and deans and vice president, all of us have been thinking about this. It just didn't happen like topsy. It didn't just grow. But there are things that we don't know and understand yet, and we're going to try to do it better. But I told you, nanotechnology, the application of nanoscience, I told you earlier, enables us in principle to arrange individual atoms one by one to make useful devices. Perhaps an even more valuable impact of nanotechnology will involve something I was skeptical about until last year, something called self-assembly, which is used to form useful chemical structures without the intervention of humans. I will tell you that Rice was the first university anywhere to mount a coherent and comprehensive research and teaching program in nanoscience and nanotechnology. And by the way, this is the area in which many of our young freshmen and sophomores or undergraduates, this is the area that they want, that many of them want to do research with our faculty, and some are. There was a young lady who came into my office 2 years ago on the first day of class, right after matriculation. And she was from the Cambridge area. And she said, I just thought I'd come in. I saw your door open. I said, that's fine, you can always do that. She said, I wanted to tell you, she's a freshman, I wanted to tell you why I turned down MIT to come to Rice. And I said, well, that'll be very interesting. Tell me. She said, because I am interested in biomedical engineering and nanoscale science. At MIT, I could have participated in research, but it was made clear to me that it was mainly washing beakers. And at Rice, I could actually be interacting with my professor. And she's a freshman now. And I said, good, how's it looking so far? She said, well, I came early. I came 2 months early, and already my professor and I have published 2 articles. Well, you start to think about new kinds of students and new environments when you hear about this kind of thing, don't you? Also, I told you about molecular electronics spawned by nanotechnology, and there's important feedbacks between nanotechnology and biomedical engineering, particularly in the engineering of artificial human tissue. And that means, by the way, taking your own tissue and putting it on scaffolds and letting it grow. But here's where Bladerunner comes in, and it starts to get a little bit scary, so you need to watch it. Potential applications of nanotechnology in harnessing molecular structures for biomedical purposes, they're just breathtaking. They include, as I told you, the production of rationally engineered pharmaceutical products, genetically engineered hemoglobin that serves as an effective blood substitute. And yet another striking example of the linkages between nanoscience and biomedicine, faculty at Rice and MD Anderson have developed something called golden nanoshells, which is a promising new nanoparticle for cancer therapy. Coated with targeting antibodies and injected into the body, these nanoshells travel to tumor sites. And we shine a light on them, infrared or near infrared. It kills the tumor cells and leaves the healthy cells unharmed. This is the technology now going into development between faculty at Rice and MD Anderson Cancer Center. We hope that it bears out its promise. The fourth of our complementary research areas lies in the environmental and natural resource field. Environmental research at Rice centers on energy, air quality, water remediation, and finance. These are activities pursued in interdisciplinary centers. Our EPA Hazardous Substance Center and our Joint Center on Energy and Oil and Gas rely not only on science as a discipline, but also on policy and finance, involving faculty from engineering and economics and the Baker Institute for Public Policy. It's especially fortuitous for Rice that our other 3 critical research areas, info, bio, and nano, all impact environmental and energy research at Rice. And this is particularly true for high-performance computing. So, I don't have to belabor the point. I think it's clear that our prime task for the coming few decades is not very complicated at all. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out, okay? I mean, I don't, and my colleagues, we don't have to be. What we need to do is to consolidate our position at the apex of undergraduate education while bringing more of our graduate and professional programs up to the same high quality as the undergraduate program. Arguably for graduate studies, the Shepherd School of Music is already there, and I would say you could almost say the same for the School of Architecture and the Jones Graduate School of the Jones School of Management under Gil Whitaker has been infused with a creative energy, the likes of which I've never seen in another business school anywhere in the country, and I've been around a few. Sustaining distinction in research and graduate education in our highly focused effort will require more resources, and even more important than more resources, more resourcefulness than at any other time in our history. Successful conclusion of this strategy will be of immense significance to our undergraduate program. You know that in most other universities, I would go so far as to say virtually all other universities, faculty researchers deal almost exclusively with graduate students. At Rice, they interact daily with both graduate students and undergraduates, including freshmen, or we now call them first-year undergraduates, sorry. Indeed, the very design of our new buildings is intended to call to the attention of our undergraduates, call to their attention the intellectual excitement of leading-edge research, and to enhance their day-to-day interaction between faculty and students. It's in the design of the new nanotechnology building. It's in the design of our computational engineering building, and it's darn sure in the design for the library, but it's also in the design for New Weiss College and New Martell. I guarantee you that when New Martell and New Weiss are completed, we're going to have big problems. You know why? Everybody's going to say, we want our colleges to be outfitted the same way. That's a good problem. That's a good problem. In the meantime, it will get us through the complaints of students about all the noise. But these are eggs that are having to be cracked to make the omelets for this and future generations, and people have to learn to live with it. We're trying to make it easy on them as we can. Our new research facilities are increasingly utilized by questing undergraduates as well as graduate students. Active involvement of our undergraduates in the research activities of the university in the coming century will be very important for those who want to have satisfying and challenging careers. But it's more than having satisfying and challenging careers. We must never lose sight of the fact that at Rice what we're trying to do is not to enable people to leave and know how to make a good living. We really like for them to know how to make a good life. And we better be careful we don't lose sight of that. One of the principal factors that will distinguish between the very good and the what I call not so good universities of the 21st century will be the extent to which they successfully draw undergraduates into the research enterprise. The best undergraduates require much more than mere teaching. They require what graduate students should get, very good mentoring, which is a little different than delivery of teaching. And that's just one of the reasons why we should not be overly anxious about Rice's future in the new information and biomedical age where virtual classrooms and distance learning are expected to flourish. Effective teaching may be quite possible over the internet, although no one has shown yet how good mentoring can be accomplished with distance learning. They haven't done that yet. But at Rice, not only do we not view the information revolution with trepidation, we actually welcome it because we're going to soon be undertaking initiatives to assert academic leadership in the innovative use of new information technology in teaching. We're going to convert what is now a disarray of services and devices and technologies into a highly accessible array of tools for students and faculty in all disciplines. science and engineering and humanities. It really surprises people when I talk about our pioneering efforts in information technology and teaching, and I start out with examples drawn from the humanities and the social sciences and architecture, and then go into engineering and the sciences. Now, all these undertakings that I'm talking about are going to require major financial and, even more important, intellectual investments to attain two goals. First, the provision of leading-edge, ubiquitous, and seamless communication and learning technologies in the service of teaching and research for every faculty member and graduate student and undergraduate and ultimately alumni. This new academic matrix will also vastly facilitate our collaborative efforts in teaching and research locally, nationally, and even internationally. The second cornerstone of our efforts is to make our library, our efforts in the information technology, the teaching end and the learning end, is to make our library the template for teaching and research libraries of the 21st century. Our library is already the geographic center of campus. When we finish renovation, when we finish expansion of the library in 2005, we will have established it as the university's intellectual center as well. In addition, and Mary will be happy to hear this because she already knows it though, Rice's initiatives in harnessing new information technologies will have extremely positive implications for programs of lifelong learning, focused most strongly upon our alumni, especially the increasing number of alumni that will change careers several times during their lifetimes. All these initiatives to increase the university's research enterprise and service enterprise will be expensive, and that comes at a time right now of softness in equity markets and in a period in which we cannot count on steadily growing federal support for most research. The NSF budget is going up slower than the rate of inflation. To be sure, Rice's share of federal research funds has been growing recently, and we've always used the endowment to heavily subsidize not just teaching but research as well. But financing further leading-edge research is going to require much more than that. It's going to require funding from other less risk-averse sources, less risk-averse than the government, including foundations and businesses. More and more universities have found it necessary to look beyond government and to look beyond foundations for support, although hoping that you can keep their support. Research interactions between universities and private companies are becoming much more common, even though some of these interactions haven't been fully thought out. We need to rethink our relationships with business and explore alternative forms of partnerships with them while assuring that increased industry sponsorship of research widens our mission and supports our mission and does not distort it. That's not an easy task. We've already expended considerable energies in revamping our policies on intellectual property and on transfer of technology so as to assure that we don't undermine the highest value of higher education, and that is, of course, uninhibited, disinterested inquiry. Universities generally, and Rice specifically, surely confront a challenging future. But for universities, of course, challenge is not new. Universities, Rice among them, have persevered and flourished, all the while enhancing human understanding and helping to improve human life. Universities have always required the support of outside patrons, and there's always been some level of tension between the external imperatives of patrons and the internal imperatives of scholars and students. That a great university is a place where these diverse imperatives can meet, not always in conflict, but under the best of circumstances in creative engagement from which can come some of society's greatest good. In our future, the detailed terms of engagement between the university and larger society, including the business community, will be different than they have been in the past. But the existence of such engagement and the need for it and the general nature of it will not be a whole lot different than from the past. The environment for universities is not stable and cannot be viewed as stable. And maybe that's a good thing because it keeps us on our toes and maybe keeps us nimble. Profound, unanticipated changes surface virtually every month. Within the last decade, the Japanese economy morphed from acclaimed model of economic miracles to woeful stagnation. 10, now going into 11 years of recession in the Japanese economy, and there's nothing in the horizon that appears is going to change in the near future. And during the same 10 or 11-year period, the Soviet Union imploded politically and economically. The Internet was virtually unknown 11 years ago in 1990, and the World Wide Web appeared only 8 years ago. New fields of science and engineering, including nanoscience and computational engineering, were born in that decade. While the pace of discovery of applications in biomedical engineering and genetics accelerated sharply, virtual learning appeared. AIDS swept through Africa, southern Africa, in less than a decade, in some societies affecting as many as a third or 40% of the population 18 to 38. Tuberculosis has made a fearful comeback. Decays in public education K through 12 in the United States has continued. It is now very clear that the longer American children stay in our primary and secondary schools, the worse they seem to get. The world economy and world politics, for better or for worse, will be irreversibly altered by the emergence of modern China. And we are right now at this minute having some of the birthing pains of the emergence of modern China. All institutions in society, including universities, are going to be at pains to think and rethink their strategies to accommodate these changes and to master them. More than ever before, the cost of complacency is going to be very, very high. If we're going to successfully cope with these changes, it's going to require substantial vision and no small measure of boldness in faculty recruiting and in new programs and in fundraising. I'm very fond of the advice offered 2 centuries ago by Wolfgang von Goethe. And that advice remains very relevant as long as we don't go too far in accepting it. He said, "Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it." And this is advice we will do well to bear in mind while adhering strongly to strong Rice tradition.